think so. Yep.
Good evening, everyone. We'd like to call the meeting to order and welcome everyone.
This meeting is being held in accordance with the schedule of meetings adopted at the organizational meeting held January 5th, 2026. Adequate notice of this meeting of the Kenilworth Board of Education has been provided to the Home News Tribune, the Kenilworth Star Ledger, the local source on January 15th, 2026. A copy has been filed with the Kenilworth Borough Clerk, posted in the board office, the Kenilworth Borough Hall, Brearley and Harding Schools, as is provided by the Open Public Meetings Act. In addition to the notice of this public hearing had an advertised budget was posted to the district's website in the legal notices section on April 9th, 2026, following the approval of the Executive County Superintendent of Schools.
Thank you, Mr. Ganello. Can you please rise for the salute to the flag? Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Ganello, can we please have roll call?
Yes.
Thank you.
Biner.
Here.
Criccoli.
Here.
David.
Here.
Haberthur.
Here.
Herdina. Ladati.
Here.
Panici.
Here.
Tiers.
Here.
Zimmerman.
Here.
We have quorum.
Thank you.
The purpose of this evening's meeting is to conduct the annual public hearing for the annual school district budget, present the budget to the community, adopt the budget, and approve additional resolutions that are on the agenda this evening. Okay. Right?
Yes.
It's up there.
Hi, good evening, everyone. Thank you for being here. This budget cycle has been extremely difficult, as I know you're all aware. But it's one thing for me to say that after 2 years of being a superintendent. It's another thing for Mr. Ganella to say that after 37 years. So I just want to take a moment and recognize his hard work to make this budget be what it is. I feel good about this budget in the sense that we're in a better place than last year, but we're in a very tough situation as a school district, and Mr. Ganella will go into further details about that. But I want to thank him and also want to thank the Finance and Facility Committee for all their hard work and late nights, as well as the full board for their support during this process. Tonight, we're going to go over the budget goals again so that we can remind the public of where we started, talk about the school experience and the impact of next year's budget. And then Mr. Ganella is going to go into talking about the budget status, review of our expenditures, our revenues. He'll talk about banked cap. He'll recap our balances and reserves, talk about our capital projects, move on to the tax levy and its impact, and then end with a call to action. So that's the agenda for this evening's presentation. So I'm just going to go back to October, where we presented our budget goals, which I'm proud to say that we have stuck to. We began the process months ago thinking about all of our needs, making sure that we're prioritizing the needs and requests that have the greatest impact on curriculum, instruction, assessment, and achievement. It's our foremost goal here. We also, of course, want to prioritize our overall district goals. We want to develop athletic and co-curricular opportunities. Specifically, we focused this year on David Brearley Middle School, since we have new space, new principal, and a new school dynamic with that. So we wanted to make sure that this coming budget supported that ongoing growth of that part of our district. We continued to commit ourselves to zero-based budgeting. We also wanted to make sure that we're providing our pre-K staffing and servicing that 4-year-old population, which we had promised the community back when we passed the referendum. So we wanted to stick to that. And of course, our final goal was to minimize our tax impact by maximizing our tax dollars. So that's been an ongoing goal, and that's a driver of many of the decisions that we make and a lot of the discussions that we've had with the Finance Committee. So those were our goals during this process. So I want to talk briefly about what this budget does for our school experience. As I just said in our goals, we are honoring our commitment to full day 4-year-old pre-K as a priority, so I'm really proud of that. It's not easy to do. It's a new program that just started in January. Sorry, it's not a new program, but it's a new addition to that program. So it's great to see that we can continue moving forward in that regard, and I think that's going to be great for our community long term to be receiving those students at an early age. We've been able to maintain our instructional, co-curricular, and athletic programming currently in place in our district, and that is no small feat. It's very difficult to do that. You've probably heard headlines from other districts with lots of significant cuts and such. We're not there right now, so we're proud of that. This budget does afford a modest expansion of some middle school co-curricular programming, and I think that'll benefit our students. So we're able to do that. We are shifting our resources a bit from supplies to personnel, so we've had to make some cuts in supplies in order to make sure that we, as best as possible, can maintain our personnel. Finally, we're still working on finding efficiencies in our schedule to prioritize personnel. We're hoping to hire back a librarian for our district, specifically at Harding, and we're looking at ways to keep our classroom teachers at a stable place. Finally, of course, we are maintaining, we're ensuring that our district is compliant with certifications, special education, the NJDOE and QSAC requirements. So that's always an important component here. The impact of our budget. And I said this at our last meeting and our previous presentations regarding the budget. There remains an ongoing impact. We can't shy away from the realities that this is having, our budget situation is having on our teaching staff and on our students in schools. Last year, we lost 1 administrative position and 8 staffing positions. That created some larger class sizes in upper elementary, middle school, and high school. Those continue into the future, which we don't like. But that's where we are, so we're stable right now because of those cuts from last year, and we're not able to grow is basically the gist of it. Similarly, the interventions that we want to be providing, we're providing, but we could be, I wish we were back where we were 2 years ago with our intervention program. So we're providing interventions for students who need them, but it's not as robust as we want it to be. So that is an impact that our teachers are experiencing and our students are experiencing. Finally, the last bullet there says that there are no programmatic cuts as a result of the 26-27 school budget, but simultaneously there's little growth in programming too. So it's great that there's no cuts, but we're not able to grow in the way that we want to grow. With that said, Mr. Gonella is going to take over from here, talk about a lot of the specifics and nitty-gritty details. So I'm going to turn it over to him and just thank him again for all of his hard work, and he has a lot of details to share with you. So, Mr. Gonella.
Thank you, Mr. Davies. And I echo his statements regarding the hard work that went behind and thank the Finance Chair, Mr. Ladati, and the Finance Committee for their hard work over the months of January and February trying to piece this all together. I'd also like to thank Mr. Davies as well as my fellow administrators who really put their heads together to tackle this undaunting task. There is no really sugarcoating the budget. It was a very difficult budget season. We entered the process facing what many have called the fiscal cliff, at a point where rising fixed costs and declining revenues threaten the very core of our programs. Through disciplined belt tightening and strategic alignment, I'm pleased to report that we have averted the fiscal cliff for 2026-2027 school year. We have protected the student experience and maintained the integrity of our facilities, class size, and programs. However, it is my professional responsibility to be candid with the board and the community. We have reached a point where the how of our budget, the spreadsheets and the line items is being dictated by the why on this screen. A structural deficit isn't just about spending, it's about the fundamental mismatch between our obligation and our tools. You will see that we have reached this balanced state primarily through the significant use of fund balance. While this is a necessary bridge for this year, using one-time savings to cover recurring operational costs is the definition of a structural deficit. A structural deficit means our underlying expenses, mandated costs like contractual salaries, healthcare, utilities, and special education are growing faster than our static revenue streams. In short, our recurring costs are outpacing our revenue. It's a theme you will hear throughout my presentation this evening. We are facing the expenditure gap where the costs we must pay are growing faster than the revenue we are allowed to collect. The big three, salaries, healthcare, special education, student mental health services, are all outpacing our static revenue streams. When personnel costs rise by 8.35%, revenue is capped at 2% before statutory adjustments. The gap grows wider every single year. Finally, I want to address the why can't we be just a little more creative question. The reality is that we operate within a rigid framework of fixed constraints between state-mandated code compliance, the legal requirements of collective bargaining. Our creative flexibility is severely restricted. We aren't choosing these costs. We are managing them within a set of rules that often prioritize compliance over fiscal local control. Often the board and administration have very creative, cutting-edge solutions to these problems, only to be thwarted by code compliance or collective bargaining restraints. We are working within a framework where the costs are fixed, but our flexibility is restricted. This is why we say the current model is unsustainable. We have value engineered our operations to the limit. We are no longer facing a management problem. We're facing a structural framework problem that requires the strategic shifts, like shifting the election to April. So we have that we've been discussing over the past several months and are going to be considering implementing later this evening. This slide represents the math that keeps board members, superintendents, and school business administrators up at night. It illustrates the fundamental disconnect between the cost of doing business, and our legal ability to fund it. One of the most important numbers on this screen is the 2.8 CPI, or Consumer Price Index. That is the actual increase in the cost of goods and services we need to run our schools, everything from paper, technology, to cleaning supplies. However, we are governed by a 2% tax levy cap. Every year, the inflation exceeds that cap. We are effectively being asked to cut our buying power by the difference. We're essentially trying to solve a 2.8% problem with a 2% tool. Energy is one of the most largest non-personnel costs, and it is notoriously volatile. While we have made strides in solar and energy efficiency, we are still heavily impacted by oil price fluctuations. These aren't just market trends. They are line items that can swing by tens of thousands of dollars based on global events entirely outside of our control. We are still feeling the long tail of the supply chain disruptions. Procurement isn't just more expensive, it's more complex. Shipping charges and rising costs of essential materials mean that the same dollars we spent 2 years ago simply don't go as far today. And finally, the most significant driver of our budget, the human capital, is governed by multi-year collective bargaining agreements. These contracts are essential for retaining high-quality teachers, but the math is unforgiving. When negotiated salary increments and mandated health benefit costs combine to grow at a rate significantly higher than 2%, we face a structural gap before a single student even enters the building. We are legally bound to honor these obligations, yet legally capped in how we can fund them. A collision of two state laws that leaves the local district caught in the middle. When you combine these four factors, you see why belt tightening eventually hits the wall. We have optimized every internal process we can. We are now at the mercy of the external economic reality that requires us to rethink our long-term funding strategy. start to get into the meat of the revenues and the expenditures. Our expenditures profile reflects the significant inflationary pressures facing the district. Fixed costs, specifically salaries, health benefits, property insurance, and utilities continue to present substantial budgetary challenges. The cost of doing business is rising faster than our revenues, requiring us to prioritize immediate contractual mandated obligations over long-term capital instructional investments. You can see here where there are significant decreases in the budget in the areas of support services, technology, facility maintenance, operational plan, upkeep of grounds, but then you can see the significant increases in the area of health benefits and regular instruction, which is basically salaries and special education. So where do we stand today? To provide a complete and transparent fiscal picture, we are looking at the budget through two distinct lenses tonight. The first chart presents our budget using adjusted figures. It offers the most direct apples-to-apples view of how successive reductions in state aid have physically impacted our district's spending power and operational capacity over time. The second chart adjusts the current year and prior year encumbrances. This alignment is not only a requirement for our state submission, but also ensures our reporting remains consistent with generally accepted accounting principles, or GAAP. This view reflects our actual legal and financial commitments as they move across fiscal years. By reviewing both, we can see the raw impact of aid loss while maintaining the fiscal rigor required by state oversight. So this slide I've always found very interesting. It's the programmatic breakdown of the budget. It serves as a budget footprint, providing a transparent map of exactly where your tax dollars are committed. It illustrates that while more than half of our budget is dedicated to our instructional core, a significant portion is driven by mandated services and fixed operational costs that leave very little room for discretionary spending. The two largest slices represent regular education at Harding and Brearley. This is the product of the district: classroom teachers, textbooks, the direct instruction. While it's the largest part of the budget, it's also where we are most vulnerable to inflation, as these are the primary human capital costs. Then there's mandated services such as special education, which is our second largest single expense. This is important for the public to understand that this is a mandated cost. We are legally and ethically bound to provide these services. As compliance requirements grow, this slice of the pie naturally expands, often at the expense of other discretionary areas. The employee benefits insurance piece is a significant wedge. This segment represents the increase in our healthcare spike that we had this year, and an expense that now consumes nearly 1/6 of every dollar we spent. Also included in this category are essential liability and safety protections, including workers' compensation, property and casualty, errors and omission, and cyber liability insurance. As discussed, these premiums are subject to the same aggressive market pressures as our health care costs. Undistributed programs are the hidden gears behind the budget. They include the building maintenance, technology, leases, debt service, administration, and utilities. These costs are highly sensitive to energy and supply chain issues that we talked about earlier. The interscholastic athletics, I'm going to put a plug in for it this year. It's often one of the most scrutinized parts of the budget because people consider it an extra, but it's only 2.16% of the budget. And they represent one of the highest returns on investment for student engagement and school culture. At just over 2% of the budget, our athletic programs are one of the most efficient tools we have for student retention and character building. While some may see this as discretionary expense, we view it as a core component of the student experience for several reasons. Participation and belonging. About 50% of our student student body participates in at least one sport. For many students, this connection to the school is what drives their academic performance and attendance. Athletics funds more than just jerseys and referees. They cover the coaching stipends, transportation to away games, the safety equipment necessary to meet state compliance for student athletes. And finally, community identity. Greeley athletics are a primary point of pride and connection for the broader community. These programs foster the leadership, discipline, and teamwork skills that aren't always captured in a standardized test score, but are vital to post-graduation success. In short, we are investing roughly 2 cents in every dollar to provide hundreds of students with a structured, safe, and competitive environment that keeps them engaged with their education. Moving on to labor costs. While last year's budget, as Mr. Davies indicated, was defined by a forced decrease in spending and staff reductions due to the loss of state aid and the overall budget. This year's narrative is one of shifting priorities. To absorb double-digit increases in healthcare and rising costs of special education, we were forced to make difficult reductions in other critical areas. This includes scaling back on allocations for facilities maintenance, teaching supplies, and textbook renewals. If we look at the core of our budget, our people and their benefits, the math of our structural deficit becomes unavoidable. Across these three categories, salaries, health benefits, and pensions, our costs are increasing over $2 million this year alone. That is an 8.35% increase in our largest expenditure bucket. We are seeing a 5.5% increase in salaries and stipends. It is important to understand that this isn't solely about raises. It represents the cost of the high-quality educators our community demands and the contractual obligations required to keep our schools running. Furthermore, additional staff were required this year to comply with state-mandated special education class size limits. A significant portion of the stipend increase is dedicated to expanding the activities at the middle school, as Mr. Davies stated was one of our budget goals. This fulfills the key commitment made by the board to establish a distinct middle school identity. By investing in these clubs and programs, we are fostering the same sense of school pride and student participation that has been so successful at the high school level. And finally, healthcare, pension, Social Security. This is perhaps the most critical figure on the screen. Our employee benefits costs are projected to jump about 22%. It's a market-driven force entirely outside of the board's control, representing a $960,000 increase that must be funded before a single dollar is allocated towards new textbooks or technology upgrades. To mitigate this, we have formally marketed our full insurance portfolio. We're currently awaiting final analysis from our brokers to determine if a carrier switch is necessary. It is important to note that any change in providers must strictly comply with labor relations requirements to ensure coverage remains equal to or better than our current programs. When our primary expenses grow by 8.35%, but the state limits our primary revenue growth to 2%, we are effectively being asked to do more with less every single year. This table is the clearest evidence of why our current funding model is unsustainable and why we must look towards structural changes such as the April election to protect the quality of our district. Now that we've examined the where the money goes, let's look at how we get to fund those commitments. This slide outlines our revenue strategy through three primary lenses: the utilization of allowable statutory adjustments to the tax levy, our strategic use of reserves to maintain stability, and the current status of our debt service as we look toward future relief. So the focus number one is on the tax levy adjustment. The proposed current expense tax levy is 3.75%. While this exceeds the standard 2% cap, it is important to note that this is a compliant and allowable increase. At our March 25th presentation, we went into detail about the specific statutory exceptions, such as enrollment adjustments and healthcare adjustments that permit this adjustment to meet our operational needs. Focus number 2 is the strategic use of reserves. We are utilizing district reserve to bridge current funding gaps. However, this is a finite resource. I will provide a detailed analysis of how this deployment impacts our immediate fiscal health, and more importantly, what it means for our long-term budgetary sustainability. And then finally, the third focus I want to focus on is the debt service stability. Debt service tax levy has reached a point of stabilization after several years of infusion of capital reserves and tax increases. We anticipate the tax impact to remain relatively flat until the 29-30 fiscal year, at which point the 2016 bond is scheduled to expire. At that point, that will provide future structural relief or fiscal opportunities to the board. Let's talk a little bit about state aid. While our overall state aid has increased, which is undeniably positive, a closer look at the distribution reveals some concerning trends. My primary concern lies with the shift away from categorical aids in favor of equalization aid. It's important to remember the distinction. Equalization aid is driven by community wealth and property values, whereas categorical aid is tied directly to student demographics and specific needs. The state's decision to reduce special education funding by $803,000 is particularly staggering when our total district commitment to special education exceeds $9 million. Forget, that was this special education is a state mandate. That term, state mandate, state pay, just doesn't work here. The current funding formula is widely acknowledged as flawed. While the state may recognize the need for a systemic overhaul, it remains to be seen if the governor and the legislator possess the fiscal fortitude to prioritize student needs over zip codes. We will continue to advocate for a formula that reflects the actual cost of educating our diverse student population. During our March 25th meeting, the board moved to submit the tentative budget to the executive county superintendent. At that point, we explored the foundational technical metrics of the budget, specifically the minimum tax levy, the tax levy cap calculation, and district adequacy. I won't get into that tonight, but it is important to note that Kenilworth remains significantly below the adequacy target, meaning the state's own funding, own formula admits we are spending less than what is required to provide a thorough and efficient education. We will now dive deeper into the remaining technical aspects to provide a complete and transparent view of our fiscal standing. To understand our revenue flexibility, we could look at bank cap. In short, bank cap is not real money or cash reserves. Rather, it is the legal authority to raise the tax levy above the standard 2% limit without a separate ballot proposal. Under New Jersey Administrative Code, a district can bank any unused taxing authority and carry it forward for use in any of the next 3 budget cycles. However, this is only permissible if the district has fully exhausted all other eligible statutory spending authority. So what are the key takeaways for our district? Current bank cap, due to the increase in healthcare cap adjustment, we were able to generate $459,000 in bank cap. Future outlook, short of a monumental shift in state aid distribution, I do not anticipate the district being in a position to generate significant bank cap in the foreseeable future. And then authority versus assets. It's critical to distinguish the bank cap from is critical to distinguish bank cap from free balance or surplus. Bank cap is the right to ask for more tax revenue. Surplus is actual cash on hand from previous years. We will review surplus in the next section. Our financial health is not just measured by our annual budget, but our recapitulation of balances. It's important to understand that these balances are not a single undifferentiated pool of cash. Instead, they are categorized into specific buckets, each governed by strict statutory requirements. Each category is defined by three key regulatory guardrails. Accumulation, how the funds are generated, example through unspent appropriations or a specific board resolution. Number two, maximum thresholds. The state mandates caps on how much we can hold in certain reserves, such as capital reserve limited to the district's long-range facility plan or emergency reserve set at a specific dollar amount. And then finally, usage restrictions. The law dictates exactly what these funds can be spent on and when, often requiring specific board action or even state approval to release them. In the following slides, we will break down our current standing in capital reserves and maintenance reserves and unassigned surplus, so you can see exactly how we are positioned in both emergency needs and long-term stability. The figures we are presenting tonight are based on our most current internal projections while we await the final certification of the 2025 audit, which has been delayed due to unexpected health challenges faced by our external auditor. We remain currently confident in the conservative nature of these estimates. Furthermore, the Finance and Facility Committee has already met to discuss and establish contingencies to ensure fiscal stability regardless of the final certification timing. The first two categories to review are our unexpected unassigned free balance, which is surplus, and our restricted legal reserve, which is excess surplus. Ideally, a district should not rely on these funds to cover recurring operational costs. Surplus is our savings account, intended for unforeseen emergencies and fiscal stability. However, to maintain our current instructional programs for one more year, we are proposing to appropriate $2.5 million to support this budget. Hopefully the state will come through for us. While this is a significant increase from our current levels, it is necessary to move to bridge the gap in this fiscal cycle. Using reserves to supplement recurring expenses is a high-risk fiscal strategy. It creates a structural deficit, meaning we are funding outgoing costs with one-time revenue. Once these funds are spent, they do not automatically refill. If we continue to rely on this balance the budget, we face the fiscal cliff that we've been talking about, where our reserves are exhausted, but our expenses remain. This path is unsustainable long-term and underscores the urgent need for a more equitable state aid formula. This will be our challenge for the 2027-2028 budget. So, maintenance reserve, we are appropriating $73,000 for specific projects, which I'll review in a minute, and we will have a remaining balance in maintenance reserve of $277,003. Capital reserve, we're not appropriating anything this year, and it remains at $234,711. We have made monumental strides over the past several years in the area of capital improvements, and we are in very good shape with regards to that. So hopefully at some point we'll be able to start putting money back into that. But right now our capital and our facilities are in excellent shape. And then finally, emergency reserve, we are not appropriating anything into this year's budget, and it remains at $250,000. And someone asked me the other day, what's the purpose of emergency reserve? We made a decision quite a few years ago to fund the emergency reserve, which is at its max of $250,000, for the specific purpose of in a year like next year where we're really tight and 3 students move in with extraordinary needs, out of district placements or something like that, and we can't find it within the operating budget. That's what that emergency reserve would be. It's very restrictive, but in those particular cases, the commissioner has allowed the use of emergency reserve to be used. So specifically, the capital projects that we are going to be taking a look at through that $73,000 of maintenance reserve are classroom renovations, including the STEM room renovation over at Harding, and then the resurfacing of the gym floors at both buildings for a total of $73,000. Tax levy, the calculating the tax levy is a relatively simple calculation. Getting to that A figure there, that 38,425,000, that's the challenge. But once that's established, it's a relatively simple calculation. You take your total budget and then you have these offsets. So in our particular case, we're appropriating $2.5 million from free balance, both excess surplus and regular surplus. We're withdrawing $73,000 from maintenance reserve. We have revenue from Winfield, which is through our send receive relationship. And then we have miscellaneous revenues, which are interest revenues and interest revenues and rental of facilities. And then our state aid, federal aid, and then finally debt services backed out of that. So you take those total offsets of $14,181,000, subtract from the $38,425,000, and you come up with our tax levy of $24,243,441. This slide represents the bottom line for our local taxpayers. It is where the operational needs we've discussed meet the actual tax bill. When presenting this, it's important to distinguish between current expense, the cost to run the schools, and debt service, the cost of past building projects. This table breaks down the two components that make up the total tax levy. So the current expense is increasing by 3.75%. As we discussed earlier, while the state cap is at 2%, the law allows for specific adjustments, primarily to account for the massive increase in our healthcare costs. This 3.75% increase is what allows us to maintain our current programs and staff without deep cuts. It represents a $876,266 increase, which, as you saw in our labor cost slide earlier, it's actually less than the $960,000 jump in healthcare costs alone. Essentially, this levy adjustment is a direct pass-through to cover mandated benefits. Second category is debt service tax levy, which is going down. There's a small bit of good news here in our long-term obligations. Our debt service levy is decreasing by about $6,500. This is due to the stabilization of our bond payments and the schedule of debt. As we noted earlier, we expect this line to remain relatively flat until 2029, when the 2016 bonds expire, which will eventually provide more significant relief to the taxpayers. So the overall tax impact here is 3.36%. When you combine those two figures, the current expense levy and the debt service levy. So in a year where inflation is at 2.8% and our healthcare costs are in excess of 22%, a total tax levy of 3.3% is the result of exhaustive value engineering and the strategic use of $2.5 million in reserves. We're asking for this increase not to expand, but to sustain, ensuring that the quality of education in the district remains at the level our community expects. So the tax impact, the proposed budget reflects a modest adjustment for the average homeowner, primarily driven by the operational costs, while being partially offset by the reduction of debt obligations based on the average home assessed at $184,888. Remember, assessed value does not equal market value, okay? It's typically there is a big difference. And I believe you can go around to the borough's website to find out what your assessed value is. Okay. Total school tax, so the total annual tax for the average household will be $356, represents an overall increase of, net increase of $206.77 per year. So the resolution that the board will be considering later this evening is using no bank cap, generating $405,704 for the use of, for potential use in 27, 28, or the 2 years after that. It's approving withdrawals from maintenance reserve for the projects that we outlined. It approves the capital projects that we discussed. And then finally, it sets the tax levy as outlined here. So there's the two pieces of the tax levy, and you can see that there. Okay. If we rely solely on the 2% tax levy cap, while our mandated costs grow at nearly double that rate, we face the future of diminishing returns. First, we will see program contraction. We take great pride in our extracurricular and electives, but these are the first things threatened when the budget is squeezed. Second, we will see capacity strains. Efficiency eventually becomes overcrowding, leading to growing class sizes and a direct hit to student support. Ultimately, we risk an overall decline in quality. The standard of excellence this community expects cannot be maintained on a structural deficit. So, the three pillars of long-term survival. To avert this, we aren't just identifying problems, we are proposing three specific pillars for a sustainable future. The first pillar is local control. Moving the election to April isn't about asking the community to carry the load alone. It's about providing us a local safety net. Under the current system, Trenton sets a 2% cap that doesn't account for 22% healthcare spikes. By moving to April, we stop letting outsiders decide if our programs survive, and we put the power back where it belongs, in the hands of the Kenilworth residents. The second pillar is state advocacy. But local efforts are only half the battle. We must demand a return on the investment our residents already make. Kenilworth taxpayers send millions in income and sales taxes to Trenton every year. Yet we see a fraction of that return in the form of aid. This is not just a budget issue, it is a fairness issue. We need to be relentless in our advocacy to ensure that the Kenilworth is no longer treated as a donor community, used to solve the district's problems, used to solve other districts' problems while our students are squeezed. When we talk about state advocacy, we're talking about our money. Kenilworth residents work hard and pay significant state income taxes and sales taxes. Currently, massive portions of that money stay in Trenton to fund other districts while our aid remains stagnant or declines. We aren't asking for a handout. We are just asking for our fair share. We are asking that the money Kenilworth sends to the state comes back to Kenilworth to support the children and the infrastructure of this borough. The final pillar is the mandate relief. We need a statutory adjustment that recognizes the reality of special education costs. These are essential, life-changing services, but they are driven by federal and state mandates. They should not be restricted by the same 2% operational cap as general supplies and utilities. We need the state to fund this, fund what they mandate. As the quote often attributed to Winston Churchill goes, "Gentlemen, we have run out of money. Now we must think." Tonight, we are doing more than thinking, we are acting. We are proposing a path that combines local empowerment with state advocacy. The April election is our immediate shield. As we celebrate the 250th anniversary of the American Revolution, we remember that our nation was founded on a simple, powerful principle: the right to have a say in what and how we spend our taxes. By moving our election back to April, we restore that democratic right. We move away from a system where our budget is dictated by a formula in Trenton and towards a process where Kenilworth residents have the final word. It allows us to protect our standard of excellence right here at home through representation. Simultaneously, our commitment to state aid reform is a long-term sword. We will continue to fight in Trenton until the tax dollars leaving this borough finally start coming back to support the children of this borough. Currently, Kenilworth is enduring a modern form of taxation without fair representation. Our residents work hard and contribute their full share to the state, yet the formula redirects these dollars elsewhere while our own classrooms are squeezed. We are no longer content to be a donor community. We will fight for a fairer apportionment because the spirit of the revolution wasn't just about the burden of the tax, it was about the power of the people to decide their own future. This budget buys us time, but our strategic plan buys us the future. A balanced budget is a victory tonight, but a sustainable, fair funding model is our mission for tomorrow. Thank you. Are there any questions?
Yeah, go ahead, Nancy.
When we talk about the moving of the election from November back to April, and I say back to because that's what we once were, can we have some sort of clarification for the public in plain terms, what exactly goes into their hands by that vote? In the past, when we were the April election, public came out and voted for the budget, period. And the budget either passed or failed.
Right.
If we had an extra referendum, they voted on that additionally, and it either passed or failed. And if the budget failed, we wound up with that cut situation and back and forth with mayor and council and the board trying to figure out what was gonna happen.
So,
If we go back to it now, if I'm not incorrect, it's not exactly that same situation.
Correct.
It's different.
correct. So the state modified that law. That's the way it was up until just a couple years ago. The entire budget was up for, if you move back to the April election
In the past.
timeframe, the whole budget was up. Now it's only anything that is in excess of the 2% cap with adjustments. So let's take this year, for example. If we were to present this budget, if this budget was being, if this was next April, and this was what we presented, there would be one vote on the ballot in April. It would just be for candidates, board members. That's it. Because this budget is not over the cap with the adjustments.
Right.
If, for example, we wanted to go beyond that and we wanted to say we want to reduce class size in first grade by hiring one more teacher, and we want to expand the pre-K program even further, and we want to hire 2 teachers there, so we want 3 more teachers, we put that as a separate question, and that is defeated, that's it. It's not considered, we would not even be allowed to do it if we found the money,
Just like the old referendums.
just like the old way, right?
So it's not the budget portion
It's not,
itself.
so
They
this,
would only be voting on excess.
this budget wouldn't be in jeopardy if it was moved next year, only what is in excess of the cap,
Okay.
okay? And some of you get to stay an extra couple months.
According to that thing, it's like everybody's staying a couple extra months.
Yep. Any other questions?
I just had a comment for you. I'm happy that you brought up athletics. I think that in this community, and all of us who are parents here, all of our children are very involved in athletics or extracurriculars. I'd really, really like to see more of an effort put forth to use some of our new space that we have, to generate some revenue. Some of our surrounding districts do that, and they do a really good job of it.
Mhm.
for example, Union, I think, brings in like 3 to 9 million a year. I get that they're a lot bigger than us, so that's not exactly comparable, but there's an opportunity there. And I think that when you say we need to be creative, we do. That's not restricted. So, you know, we've discussed it, but I just wanted to say it publicly that there are some opportunities that we can look at. Maybe even some shared services we can think about with our borough that may help us out long term. And I do think that creativity can come in many forms outside of these restrictive measures you've discussed. You've done a really good job, Vince. I congratulate you. You know, I know you're retiring, and this is not an easy job, so big shoes to fill. But I'm glad you brought that up because it's something that this town really, really relies on.
Yeah, I brought it up specifically because I've been paying attention to what other districts are doing, because a lot of these districts are facing, town I live in is looking at cutting potentially 70 teachers. And, you know, they're now targeting athletics and the different extracurricular activities. And I get it. I mean, that's usually, I just wanted to put a plug in how important it is. Regarding shared services, we have a great relationship with our borough. We do a lot of shared services with them, whether it be, first of all, we're basically the rec department. I mean, our facilities are the Kenilworth rec. I mean, they don't have, you know, that's basically it. So that's what we're giving to them. They're providing us garbage pickup and salt and things like that. And sometimes we'll go down and clean borough halls, floors. So we do a lot of shared services with that. And then the revenue, it's, you know, we took a hiatus last year because our auditoriums were being renovated, but Mr. Connolly has made some aggressive moves, and a lot of those weekends we're renting that facility, and Mr. Haberther knows that. You know, so we're bringing in some decent amount of revenue, and now we're looking at some equity issues within the fields, and we're generating some revenue there. Small amounts because they're more student-focused programs, but there is some revenue coming from there. But if you have any other ideas, that'd be great. I gotta take a look what Union does to generate that type of money. That's great.
Are we like a very popular or like centrally located place? Because I know we have a ton of cheer competitions, dance recitals, like they're always held here, and people are coming from all over the state. So like, what attracts Kenilworth, and like, how can we get it?
I think it was, to be honest with you, I think it was our facilities. I mean, our facilities are, I mean, people always liked our facilities. I mean,
We were air conditioned.
air conditioned auditorium, the cheering, I think that was a lot to do with Miss McGowan, who was our cheer coach. She brought a lot of that stuff here, and then people would see it and they say, okay, let's piggyback off of that. So I think that had a lot to do with it. But you're right. There's a lot of, I mean, Irish dance. We have bodybuilders here. We have fusion dance. We have lots of different
I
opportunities.
grew up
So,
dancing on that stage.
so
But we also only have like 1 or 2 fields, right? It's not like other towns where they have multiple football fields and multiple softball fields, et cetera. So, and we got to compete with the rec also. We got to make sure our kids get on the fields too. So you know how much issues there are with scheduling rec, soccer, and football and everything else. So it's to squeeze a lot of other stuff into the town, it gets a little difficult at times.
and we also have our own obligations, so we can't rent the facilities all the time. You know, so we're not going to rent the facilities and kick Mr. Weinstein and our crew out of doing their play or the fall play. And next year we're going to be having a middle school play, so that's going to be two middle school plays. 2 middle school plays. So now you're, instead of having 2 opportunities, you have 4 spaces being used. So that makes it a challenge as well.
I think that's also an opportunity for revenue, our shows.
I
Some other
don't
schools-
disagree with you.
Yeah, some shows, some other places really do a really good job of bulking up the.
Advertising.
Yes, and we can do a much better job.
Jeremy knows that. I've always advocated that we don't do enough advertising. I mean, there's a form of thespian myself. There's nothing like playing to a full crowd. I mean, you know,
Right.
I mean, it's you just live off that energy. So So sometimes when you see some of the crowds, it's like, ooh, come on, you know, you really want that place packed.
Yeah.
So it's important.
I was just happy you didn't go into your grease routine.
That's it. Grease, baby. Grease is the word. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay. Thank
you.
you.
Thank you. Mr. Ladati, would you like to do a committee report?
Well, I think Mr. Ganella and Jeremy just kind of went through it with the budget. You know, I just want to thank, you know, the Finance Committee, Spine, Mr. Davis, Mr. Havether. You know, a lot of meetings since December, a lot of effort. I think everybody was prepared. We always ask the tough questions of not only of the superintendent and the business administrator, but all the administrators that went up here. You know, we start at a zero budget. It's not, I know we've said this 100 times, but we don't start from last year's budget and layer on top of it. We start at zero, which makes things a lot tougher to go over dollar by dollar. So saying that, the only thing you know, the Facilities Committee and the Finance Committee recommends that we approve the budget. There's also three more resolutions. Resolution 2 is to move the school election to April. 3 is the appointment of the project engineer for the fire alarm system. And 4, again, is the award of the contract for the fire alarm installation. So other than that, that's all I have for my report.
And I would just like to reiterate that we did spend a lot of hours putting this budget together. There were no shortcuts taken. We examined everything and tried to squeeze as much juice from a very dried piece of fruit that we could. So, you know, the citizens of Kenilworth should know that this is the best effort to keep the school functioning, give Mr. Davies the ability to lead the school and continue to make it grow. So, you know, I second Mr. Ladati's statement to approve the budget and look forward to the future. So.
Mr. Goodell, would you mind just giving a brief description of the fire alarm
Sure.
resolutions that we're approving tonight? Because that's a significant chunk of change.
Yeah, so Brearley's system is significantly challenging in that, where are my notes? Let me see here. It's a little older system, and it's constantly going into trouble and costing us quite a bit in maintenance. You know, these are basically electricians who come in and do this type of work, so it's not cheap. It's a full replacement. So there's a new system in the new edition, and this will complement the system so it integrates it completely. What we decided to do is not go through our engineer to design it, but use the company that maintains our system currently to develop the specifications. I'm comfortable with that. Number one, it's through a cooperative purchasing agreement through ADATA, so the pricing is basically predetermined. But it's also good to know that the company that's familiar with our system, they didn't initially install it, but they've just been maintaining it, is going to be now upgrading it. So they're very familiar with the system. There's a lot of layers of I-field protection in the way we're doing it. There's local code officials who are required to oversee this process, but then we're also hiring this other company to oversee it as well, what I basically call a commissioning type of thing. So they're going to take a look at the plans. Their responsibility is to take a look at the plans, review them, consult with the contractor, make adjustments if they feel it's necessary, and then they're going to be on site to work with the local code officials and ensure that the product is installed the way the specifications are.
Yeah, the other thing I was hoping you would comment on is that this was a part of our referendum.
Yes, yes, yeah, the funding.
Right, the funding part of it is what I was most interested in.
Oh, okay, yes, yes.
This may be a silly question, but so Brearley, this is, never mind, it says middle and high school. But the middle school has the new one already installed or whatever.
Correct.
Never had any issues with having the two different, when there's been security drills, or if it has malfunctioned, like something's happened.
I haven't heard anything about that.
The only issues are
turning the alarm off and getting the kids back in the building after the drill. The system operates effectively to warn and get everyone out of the building.
Yeah.
It's the resetting it and silencing the alarm and getting the system out of trouble. That's where the problems lie. So if you're a teacher in the room, you know that sometimes you're standing outside with your students for extra long because people are inside trying to navigate this double system. One pretty old, one brand new. They're both talking to each other, and that's part of what needs to get
And
rectified.
like whenever you have security drills or whatever, it pertains to both.
Yeah.
They both go outside.
The whole
they
building
both-
operates as one security
Yes.
cocoon.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else, any questions before we open up the meeting to the public?
Okay. We'll first do the isolated to just the budget, because this is technically a public hearing, and then we'll open it for general comments. Okay? Public comment will now be accepted. The board sets the limit to the public to speak at the board meeting to 5 minutes per person unless the prior permission has been granted by the board to extend time pursuant to Board of Education Bylaw 0167. Please be reminded that while members of the public may speak on personnel matters during public comment, the Board of Education is legally prohibited from discussing individual personnel issues in public session unless the employee issue has requested a public discussion. The board's role is to set policy and ensure effective operation of our schools, while personnel recommendations are the exclusive responsibility of the superintendent of schools. The board reviews and acts on these recommendations in accordance with state statute and district policy, but does not initiate or manage individual staffing decisions. For the record, please include your name and address prior to making a comment. And at this point, we will be calling for public comment on the budget only. So that's the first resolution. So is there a motion to
So moved.
Second.
made by Mr. David, second by Mrs. Tears? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Okay, we're in closed session not closed session, public comment for the budget. Are there any questions regarding the budget? No? Okay, we want to transition to general public comments?
Yep.
Okay,
Another motion, Mr.? No?
Second.
You need to close and reopen?
yeah. Crowley, second by David. Okay, is there a motion to open it up for regular comments?
So moved.
Made by Nancy, seconded by
Second.
Mr. David. Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, opposed? Motion carries. This is for general public comments. Ready? Okay.
Good evening, Carmen Bucco, 238 North 18th Street, Kenilworth. Mr. Ganella, congratulations on your retirement.
Thank you.
Next year is not going to be pretty.
No.
You'll save a lot of gray hairs. I just wanted to compliment Mr. Davies. Thank you for returning my call promptly and answering my questions. I'm sorry I kept going back and forth, and I'm a trust but verify type of guy. I congratulate you all on this budget. $207 a year is a cup of coffee maybe once a week or once a month. I am running for Congress, and one of the things that I say all the time is the fact that what we do today is our children's legacy. We can't fail them. It upsets me that we have to fight on a constant basis to get money for these children to whether it be have extracurricular activities. We should not be fighting with the state. The state should be giving us what we need and what we deserve. Laying this all into taxpayers, unfortunately last night I didn't get to go to a meeting, but it kind of bothers me. I got a bunch of messages from people, there's no transparency going on. Nobody knows anything that's going on. And I said to one individual, well, you can blame our elected officials all you want, but you have to take some ownership. There was over 100 people at a meeting last night, so concerned about what's happening at Merck, but you're talking about your kids and the detriment to the children of the future, and this room is empty. It's upsetting, especially when I hear it, and I'm a straight shooter, and I'm going to go back and I'm going to say, with all due respect, you had an opportunity to see this budget this evening. It should have been done tonight. You should have been here tonight if you're so worried about the future of your children. My only concern about the April budget is the fact that it may be a small question next year to increase teachers or to increase this or to increase that. Based on what you're showing tonight, we could be 4, 8, 12, 15, 20% behind come year 2028. How do you feel like that's going to benefit the people? Now you're going and saying, well, this year we may need a $207 increase, but next year we may need $500. The following year we may need $1,000. So I hope and pray that you guys are truly fighting the state to say, I'm done paying for other people and digging into the people of Kenilworth. Our taxes are skyrocketing, and it's not fair to the homeowner that the state is not stepping up to the plate. With that, thank you very much for your time, and thank you very much for the evening, and congratulations on a very, very hard budget.
Anyone else? No?
Motion closed.
Make a motion to close the public portion of the meeting.
Wait, I think you have somebody else.
Hello, my name is Nicholas Velakis. I live on 323 Maplewood Avenue. I am a senior here at David Brierley. The reason why I am here tonight is because I wanted to make the town aware of some news I heard today. The administration has made a decision that I feel is going to affect the students negatively next year, and most likely years to come. The decision has been made to cut a full-time physical education teacher. I have witnessed the class sizes firsthand and what large class sizes can do to not only the dynamic of the class, but the safety of the students. We already have classes sizes that reach over 35 students. What will these classes look like now? I have a little sister in the school system, as well as I hope she gets to enjoy the same type of engaging, safe PE classes as I did. When she grows up, I'm not sure if cutting teachers will give her that experience. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Anyone else? Okay. I'll make a motion to close the public portion of the meeting.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. David, seconded by Mrs. Tears. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carried.
Okay.
Roll call resolutions.
Yes, okay. There are 4 resolutions on this evening's agenda. Do any of these need to be voted on separately? No, okay. So resolutions 1 through 4 on the agenda. Biner.
Yes.
Crinkoli.
Yes.
David.
Yes.
Haberthur.
Yes.
Ladati.
Yes.
Tears.
Yes.
Zimmerman.
Yes.
Yes.
Panici. Motion's carrying unanimously.
Okay. Need to go into closed executive session?
We do not.
Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. David, seconded by Mrs. Tears. All those in favor, please say
Aye.
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 Opposed? Ayes have it, motion carried. We're now adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night. Thanks.
There you go.